Hi everyone. So today I'll be filming a Q&A video. Finally, I'm way behind. I apologize for that. I always like to try to do these on a monthly basis and I'm a couple months behind at least. In fact, the first video that we have questions for is way back to the shutters makeovers that I did, where I took old shutters and repurposed them, turning them into something else. But MB did get these questions for me and I felt bad to not use them, being that she bothered to snip them out for me. So here we go. The first one here is Jane saying, have you ever heard of wet distressing? I saw a girl painting a wood box with white chalk paint, and then when it's almost dry, she rubs off the paint with a wet rag. It gives a distressed effect. Yes, in fact, I have done that in the past already, and it usually works pretty good, although I know some of the reason that I don't really do that a lot is you kind of have to watch if you have your painted surface and then you take that wet rag and rub the edges. You kind of have to watch so it doesn't give a little ridge along the edge, like where you're rubbing, like the paint kind of forms a little hill of sorts, if that makes sense. Whereas if you wait until it's dry, you're just sanding it down and it kind of fades into where the paint starts, going from the area where you distressed into the paint, if that makes sense. But you totally can do that though. I know, again, I've done that in the past, but you just kind of have to, you really have to hold that rag at an angle, like a certain way, so it doesn't give that little hump along the edge. Rhonda says, I absolutely love the corner shelf, especially that color of stain. Well, thank you. Can you provide the brand of stain that it is? I looked for driftwood stain at my local big box store and was unable to find it. It is a Minwax brand stain. Michelle says, when you take apart furniture, how do you manage not to find some screws that are set in so tight that they don't come out? I often find pieces that have screws, nails, glue, unknown metal to me, joiners. I used a crowbar the other day to take out a breakfast nook shelf and still had to hide the last bracket that would not come out. That is frustrating. Yes, I do run into that, especially with old pieces. So my last resort is usually using the hacksaw. It's one of my favorite tools because it cuts through anything. And it's kind of funny because by the time I'm at that point where nothing works, like the drill, a screwdriver, pliers, whatever, I'm kind of peeved enough that it really feels good to use that hacksaw and just cut through anything. Connie Stevens says, have you ever had a problem with your wax getting tacky or sticky? When you use wax, can you use it on a surface that gets wiped off with water daily? She's probably referring to the Annie Sloan Clear Wax. I use that on a lot of my pieces, and I don't think I've ever really had issues with it being tacky or sticky. Usually if it is, it's just not quite finished curing. And my kitchen countertop, in fact, has the Annie Sloan Clear Wax over it, and every now and then I'll kind of refinish it, giving it a fresh, new layer of the wax. I think it really protects the surface, and I don't notice that it gets tacky or sticky. And the bottom comment from that video is Beck Lehman saying, Lily of the Valley sold out again, so disappointing. Sorry about that. We have a hard time keeping that soap in stock. It's also one of my favorites. I love that scent. The next questions are from the plant corner video, and now that seems like such a long time ago. And in fact, at this point, I moved all of my plants out of that corner onto the front porch, which they love it out there. It's always nice to get them out there, but I do really like my plant space for, during the winter months. Lynn Mims says, love your little plant space. I got some inspiration from watching this. Well, thanks. That's always my goal. I have a little space that I've been wanting to do something similar in. One question, where did you get the lovely wallpaper? I love it. I also love that wallpaper, but I don't think they carry it anymore. I had gotten it at Lowe's, like on their online website. It's really unfortunate because I had used it for other projects too, and I just never grew tired of it. Julia Jenkins says, I love this video, Mary. I'm curious about the pump you use for the water feature. Can you find these at garden stores? Possibly, but I got mine from Amazon. I'll try to link it down below in the description box if I don't forget, but it's just a simple little pump. They don't cost much, probably under $10. Janice Wirch says, are there any specific shops that carry your products and or places you recommend to visit? As far as shops carrying my products, I still have some soap at ADDIE'S. I've talked about them before, and I do have their address down below in the description box. And then the Walnut Creek Antique Mall, they might have some candles in there. We try to keep some stocked in there. And then also some of the little projects that I redo, I try to, you know, put up there in the booth to sell. And the girl, Katie May, that kind of shares the booth with me, she does a lot of that sort of thing too. So there's lots of really neat things in that booth. But that is still a goal of mine. Probably not an actual store, but having a booth somewhere that I could stock some of our, you know, White Cottage Company products, because I get asked that question a lot. And then as far as places to recommend to visit, oh, there's lots of things, something for everyone here in the area. I would say, just off the top of my head, you know, of course there's lots of antique malls and thrift stores in our area that people really enjoy, including myself. You know, with those stores, especially the thrift stores, it's kind of hit or miss, but sometimes you'll find a really good bargain. And then the antique malls are just fun to walk through and reminisce, or I enjoy that. And then once in a while I'll find something that I'll buy. And as far as other places, I'm thinking Country Gatherings or the Gardens. Shia Market is kind of what they call the whole complex right there in Berlin. You can't miss it. That's probably worth it to stop in and see what they have. They have lots of different things, including a little greenhouse with really pretty plants. And there's a store right in town called Red Poppy that has some really neat things too. I don't go there a lot, but if I do, I'm usually inspired when I walk in there. But yeah, definitely a lot of really neat places to see if you're in the area. Live and Learn says, I'm stealing the bubbler fountain idea for my covered porch. Do you have a clever idea for hiding the light cord? I'm thinking light cord. You're probably talking about the pump cord, I imagine. I probably just put a little plant or something, a little vine or something over it maybe. Deb says, how do you keep Twinkle and Pebbles out of the fountain? My cat Monty would assume I made it for him as his own personal spa. Thankfully they don't do anything with that sort of thing. Like they don't even like getting their paws wet, so maybe they're kind of prissy, I don't know, but I don't worry. Yeah, I don't think they've ever messed with that or my plants, thankfully. And the bottom comment here is, which you guys know that the bottom comments are generally more negative. Somehow YouTube can kind of sort them through their algorithm, just kind of knowing which ones are negative, I guess. So I kind of like to address those. I feel like it can be constructive criticism, although sometimes it's not even that. It's just, you know, plain mean, which I've said that before, but I don't mind addressing it. I think it keeps things interesting. But Anne Lefebvre says, too much stuff in your entry. I didn't realize you had so many things. I don't know how you can get in and out of your front door. Well, I wonder if you are talking about my plant corner, my plant space. That is not our front door. I would not do that in our entryway because no, you can barely get through the door. We don't use that door a lot where the plant space is at. I mean, someone can get through, but it's rarely ever used, so we don't have to worry about tripping over things. The next questions are from the Q&A a couple months ago. Kathy says, I have a buffet that I want to paint. What kind of paint do you use to paint furniture? I have said this often before, but I just love my Do It Best brand paint. And a lot of the reason I probably use that, besides the fact that I actually like it too, is our local hardware carries it. It is the Best Look kind, like it's Do It Best, and then Best Look is the kind I usually get. And for furniture, I'll generally go with a satin sheen. Tony says, what is the big plant beside you? Is it real or artificial? I sat in the living room corner there, I think, and you may have seen there is a fiddle leaf fig plant there beside me. I bet that's what you saw. That was actually gifted to me by MB, and unfortunately it's not doing so well right now. Like most of the leaves fell off. I'm not sure what I probably neglected it. I felt like it should have been repotted, like the soil got really hard, and when I watered it, it just kind of ran off and didn't, you know, soak in. But I have it on the outside, and I just hope it'll revive itself. Bill says, does the cat understand Dutch? That's funny. I would say yes, our cats actually do, because we speak our Pennsylvania Dutch language to them. And if I ask them if they want to go out, or I have these different little things that I say to them, and I feel they actually understand what I'm saying. Because sometimes if I say, Vitnaski, which that means do you want to go out, to Twinkle, he'll kind of look at the door or head that way. And they always say with pets, you know, it's often more your tone of voice than your actual words, but I don't know. I like to think it's the words. CJ says, I was wondering if MB would be able to complete an Etsy order for someone and it be at the cabins if a couple were coming to stay there, so they don't have to pay the shipping cost. That's an interesting question. It's something I've kind of toyed a little with, but I'd have to kind of think it over, probably provide a code or something for you know, the guests to enter when they place the order. That way we'd know it's, you know, for the cottages, and we could probably run it over, because we're running the bread over all the time anyway. I bake little breads for our guests, so very interesting. Something I'll think about definitely, because I know that shipping is just a bear. I always feel so bad at how much you guys have to pay for shipping. And as a small business, you know, I can't offer free shipping. I wish I could, but I'd rather just keep my prices the way they are and just, you know, have the additional shipping. I guess that's kind of the way I think, but I just wish it wasn't so pricey. And the bottom comment here is Melba saying, I so agree. If I see one more project with the words family, love, blessed, Easter, etc., I'm going to barf. It's cheesy and a lack of artistic imagination. I don't know though. I feel like words like that can be really inspiring to people. Maybe just bring some cheer or encouragement into someone's day. It doesn't have to be, it probably isn't very artistic in a way, but if it's motivating and encouraging, there's no reason to barf about it. I guess everybody has their own taste and what they like to see in their home. For myself, I probably wouldn't want to see words on everything either in a room. Not that it would make me barf, but I'd feel like it would kind of look like a store maybe, but a word here and there is very encouraging. The next questions are from the outside maintenance video. Gina says, it's so satisfying to watch a garden take shape. I love the water feature you made and the accidental periwinkle garden. Your shed is spotless. Do you use it to store anything? I don't really. What you see here is kind of all that it can hold. Like, it's not very large, and I have some little, you know, in the doors here, and I have some things stored in there like cords and things like that, but it's definitely not really a storage shed. I do have a little red shed. You may have seen that in some of my videos down that way, and in there I probably wouldn't show you guys that. I just kind of pile everything in. It's just a small little space that holds, you know, pots and feeders and things that I don't have out all the time, and it's high time that I go through there and sort some things and get rid of stuff. Bluebonnet Shelley says, I have two questions. First, do you prefer raking the leaves rather than using a leaf blower? Maybe you like the exercise, just curious. Second, I noticed that after you trimmed the vines on your arbor, you threw them aside rather than in the fire pit. Do the birds use them for their nests? I know you're a bird lover. Everything looks great. Well, thank you. But yeah, the first question is raking the leaves rather than using a leaf blower. I would definitely always go for the leaf blower. I do not like to rake, but John kind of prefers raking sometimes. He does a lot of leaf blowing too, but he thinks it's good for the yard to kind of get rid of some of that underbrush that kind of builds up in your grass, which is probably true, but for me it's just really hard work to rake. I don't know, I'm not a fan of it. And then as far as the vines that I trim from the arbor, I often just throw those in the woods, because yes, I think maybe something will build a nest with them, or even in them, like just a place for little critters to hide. And I also feel like it's kind of good for the soil to just decompose in the woods. Phyllis Ann Godfrey says, is your pond still doing well and staying fresh and healthy? It is not doing the best. I don't even like to address this question, because I know a couple years ago I had done like a sponsorship with the pond guy, and they kindly sent all these products that we use to, you know, treat our pond, and we actually got rid of some of the muck. Like, we had deep muck, you know. The pond was much more shallow than it used to be, and we noticed a difference along the edge, and probably in the middle too, which we couldn't see that, but just along the edge we noticed that it was deeper. So it definitely, you know, did the job. But recently we've had issues the past couple years actually, where we get this weird green film on the pond, and I'll try to throw a picture in for you guys to see. Maybe some of you know what's going on, and then it gets this weird, nasty, kind of gassy smell. It almost seems to me like maybe since it's getting rid of some of that muck on the bottom, it kind of works its way up and then you smell it. I don't know, would that be a possibility or not? But it's just really nasty. Like, sometimes when I'm working outside, depending on which way the wind blows, I smell it, and it smells exactly like a landfill, or just, again, that nasty kind of gassy smell. So we're not sure what to do. We're just kind of holding still about it. We're not treating it anymore, just in case, you know, it is actually that's making it smell so bad. And we have our aerators running. We feel that's, you know, good for the fish. But we have dreams of kind of redigging the whole thing. And part of us is like, we'll just hold off on treating it. We don't want to just go spend a lot of money and keep treating it, even if it did seem to help with the muck. We don't want to do that if we plan to dig it out eventually anyway. So not sure when that would happen, but I think that would be really neat to kind of dig it out. We've even talked about making it larger. Tammy is asking, I was wondering, does your husband watch your videos? He actually does some of them. I don't think he watches all of them, but some of them he will, and he'll read the comments, and often if he's reading them, he'll read them out loud to me, you know, maybe as I'm working or whatever, but it's kind of nice. That way I get to hear more of the comments. I don't always get around to reading them all. I try to, but it's you know, kind of impossible to get to them all. But I always appreciate all of the kind words you guys say in the comment section, and I've said this before, but it's actually a place if you want some inspiration, just read the comments. Like, people actually give each other ideas, and they have whole conversations in the comment section. It's really interesting. Gail Murphy says, anyone ever tell you you have a hunky husband? Yes, I've heard that, and I totally agree with it. You make a cute couple. Well, thank you for that. And the bottom comment here is, I always find it hard to believe your boys are not involved in the care of your property. Coming from Amish to Mennonite seems odd. I should show them that comment, I guess, but they're just not really that interested. I mean, they will do things if we ask them to, like they'll mow lawn and do some weed eating. I, of course, don't film, you know, all of that, but as far as, you know, major projects around here, again, they would lend a hand if we'd ask, but often they're out doing their own thing, and it's just not their interest at this point in life. But yeah, it definitely would be good for them to participate a little bit more than what they do. The next questions are from the thrift store makeovers. That is where Kenny went to different thrift stores and picked out some items for me to repurpose. Sue says, great video. Kenny is a very good looking young man and looks so much like your husband. He did a great job picking out pieces for you to transform, knowing you'd make them beautiful. I really enjoyed this. I have nothing to offer regarding placing the transfer on the ottoman drop cloth. You guys may remember I had some stress with that. I didn't realize it was so hard to transfer those decor transfers onto fabric, and it just took a lot longer, and I was actually sore. My arms were sore the next day after doing it, just lots of rubbing. John even helped me a little bit. Have you ever tried using an electric knife to cut foam rubber for your projects? It makes the job so easy and you get a nice clean cut. I definitely should invest in one. I've been told that before, and for some reason I just don't get around to buying one. And I don't use foam a lot in my projects, so it seems like every time I use it I'm without that knife, electric knife again, so I should just go get one so I have it for next time. DH123 says, what is a thrift piece that you would not want to tackle? Be stepping out of your comfort zone and would be an interesting video for us to watch. I'll have to keep that in mind. I can't really think of anything offhand that I wouldn't want to tackle. When we talked about doing these thrift store makeovers where I'd have other people from the family going to thrift stores and shopping for me, I think I had mentioned this in that video, how the guys were joking about it, about things they could bring home for me to make me repurpose, and some of the things seemed hopeless. Like, I think it was even mentioned one of those porta potty things. So I guess that would be a nightmare for me to try to repurpose, if somebody would come with something like that. I guess you could always plant some flowers in it maybe, but no, hopefully they won't ever bring, something like that for me. But I can't really think of anything that would be daunting to me as far as, along the furniture line or decorating. Joan says, what brand of transfer did you use on the ottoman? I'm curious how well it holds up if people will be sitting on it. Will that cause the transfers to rub off? I'm not worried about that. I'm pretty sure they're on there to stay. It sure seems that way to me. And as far as the brand, it was the redesign by Prima, I believe. Linda says, did he have a money amount to spend? I think I had debated to give him a certain amount, and then I thought, no, I'm just so glad he actually is willing to go do this. I'm not going to make it challenging for him then to try to find things within a certain budget, which I would enjoy that, that challenge, but I'm not sure. I think I had told him maybe, $50 to $100, not more. And I don't think he spent, I'm not even sure that he would have spent that much, maybe around 50 or barely. And the bottom comment here is Treasure Seeker saying, shouldn't you be wearing a mask when you're spray painting? I always wear one if I feel like the spray paint is blowing over me. So I always try to stand where the wind will kind of whisk it away. So the next questions are from the candle making video. It's where I went to Amy's house, the lady that pours our candles for us, and she showed us how she does it. And I had actually sent her a text asking some of these questions. Some of them I think I'll be able to answer, on my own, but she did answer some of them here. The first question here is, you don't realize all the steps that go into it. I agree. When she makes them for you, how many does she make at a time? Thanks for the video. And Amy said for us, she usually makes several dozen in a week, which I know that can vary because sometimes we do order more than that. Kind of depends if we're promoting something seasonal or not. I can make a lot more in a day. It just depends. I could probably make 150 to 200 on a busy day. Wow, that's a lot of candles. Cindy says, I never really thought how much work that would be. Do you use essential oils? Some of the fragrances have essential oils infused in them. Using only essential oils would be very pricey and limit scents, since it's usually the citrus or herbal scents that are offered. Also, high amounts of essential oils can also be dangerous. Also, our clean fragrance oils are designed specifically to be burned in candles and will hold their fragrance stronger and provide a more consistent aroma while burning, whereas the essential oils are designed for many things but not specifically to be burned. And I agree with that, because I had made a candle here a couple years ago. I had actually gotten soy wax from Amy and poured my own little candles, and I used essential oils to scent them with. And they weren't nearly as strong as, you know, what she makes for us. I mean, it kind of worked, but with time especially, it just kind of faded. Susan Parker says, I don't know if it was mentioned, but how long does it take for the candles to dry? That's a good question. I tried the orange peppercorn melts, fantastic scent. I also love the orange peppercorn. She says 2 weeks is a good cure time. You can burn them as soon as the next day, however. The strength of the scent may not be as good. So I actually didn't realize that myself, that, you know, it's recommended to wait 2 weeks at least. Carolyn says, I have bees and use beeswax. I unfortunately have large sinkholes around the wicks all the time, and I don't know how to stop them. Can you suggest anything? Also, my wicks don't last long enough for the wax to burn sufficiently. Am I using the wrong wicks? And here Amy says, I am not familiar with beeswax, but would suggest a bigger wick. I have found working with a natural product does have its challenges as far as it's not always as consistent in performance. Sometimes my wax comes and it feels greasier, probably due to moisture, and is more likely to have sinkholes, etc. So it sounds like it can vary, you know, from batch to batch. Julia says, I will be in Holmes County June 28th through 30th, which that is coming up soon here. Do you by any chance sell some of your candles at the Walnut Creek Antique Mall, or your display at Yoder's Dried Flowers and Gifts, which you probably are referring to ADDIE'S, is where I have a little display of soap. And then I guess we covered this before, but yeah, there's some candles in the Walnut Creek Antique Mall. Cindy says, how did White Cottage Company get connected with Amy and her candles? It was actually through my sister Marlene, and I'm so thankful for that. It's been life-changing for the Etsy shop to have candles on there. And if I remember correctly, it was even Marlene that said, you know, you should have candles on your Etsy shop. And they attend the same church as Amy and her family, and she knew, you know, Amy made candles, and that's kind of where it all started. And the bottom comment here is Sue saying, please note, soy is heavily sprayed. And Amy says, I don't know, that could be true. The most popular alternative is paraffin, which I'm not sure am I pronouncing that correctly, but it looks like paraffin, which is derived from petroleum, and I see that as more of a health hazard. It is really difficult to avoid all potentially harmful things. I have heard testimonials of people that normally struggle with headaches when burning a candle, but they are able to enjoy ours, so I'm thankful for that. If someone is concerned about the spray, they may be more suited for a beeswax candle. And that's a really good answer, I think. Since I have so many videos to cover, I think I'm going to do this in 2 parts, and I'll end this video for today, and maybe about a week from now you'll see the rest of them in another Q&A. So I hope your day is going great. Thanks a lot for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.